Silvia Costa. Silvia Costa.
I'm muted. Present.
Okay, Donald Brown.
Present.
Okay, Manny Moreno, myself, I'm here, and Dwayne Murphy.
Here.
And we don't have Stephen Mercer yet? No? Jacob Barde, Ben Carnevale, Fermin Dorado, or Victor Soto, right? So we got five, Elsa. We got a quorum, okay?
Yes, we do.
All right, so want to get started real quick, and I think the first item on our agenda is the staff presentation by El Paso Water utility report on the impact fees program. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, let's get started.
And Mr. Moreno, just for the record, looks like Mr. Stephen Mercer has joined the meeting.
Oh, is that right? Okay, great. So that gives us 6. Mr. Mercer, present?
Present, yes. Sorry, I was a few minutes late.
No problem. Okay, so as far as starting the meeting, 9:05 a.m. this morning. Okay, so we're ready for the presentation. And who's presenting?
Hi, good morning. It would be me, Gustavo Hurtado, the Fiscal Operations Manager for El Paso Water.
Okay.
Okay, well, we also have Adriana Castillo on the call from El Paso Water as well.
All right.
All right, so let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So this morning, I'm going to be presenting to you just a quick presentation about the report on the water and wastewater impact fee program. The report that we sent you covers from September 1st, 2022 through February 28, 2023. Okay. So just a quick summary about the report. So far, we for this period, September to February, we have one subdivision that has been recorded, and we have 4 applications received as well for 4 more subdivisions. This puts us in total of 166 total subdivisions. And of course, they're split between 117 recorded ones and 49 subdivisions that are still in process.
I got a question real quick. On the November 2022 meeting, you had 118 recorded subdivisions. Now it's 117. Did we lose one?
117 and 118. You know what? I will have to go back and check. I don't know if Adriana has an answer on that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and you had on the November 2022, you had 118. But when I went back and looked at the list, I think it was misnumbered for some reason.
We'll check on the spreadsheet. It could be that we count them, and then maybe the number is mislabeled. We'll get back on that.
Yeah, it appears the number was mislabeled. I just want to make sure you know about that. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for that. As far as the capital improvement plan and the impact fee collections, I'll be having some slides on that. Another thing to mention, back in January 2019, there was an amendment proposed to the land use assumptions and the capital improvement plan. I know back then the City Council didn't take action on that. I believe the last amendment took place back in 2014. And next year, we're probably going to be presenting a new amendment on the assumptions and the capital improvement plan. So far, we're going to start preparations on that. Okay, so moving on into the capital improvement plan. What you see on the screen is just water projects. So far in total for all projects, we have an estimated cost of $144,570,000. Now, out of the 144 million, so far we have spent 65 million in total for all projects. And the ones on the screen are just a few of them that we're just showing to you right now. But if you want to, you can look at Exhibit 1 on the report. You'll be able to see all the projects and then the status of them if you want to see more details. And just to share just a couple of pictures. This is from the booster station number 2. This is a project that I believe is still in construction. So far on this one, we have spent, it's going to be about 5.8 million as of February 28. This next one is from the Dyer Railroad water main project on the northeast of El Paso. This one I believe is still in construction as well. And for this one, we have spent about 1.7 million as of February. This is just to share to you just a few pictures so you see what El Paso Water is doing out there. Now, wastewater capital improvement projects, we have a total of 115.6 million. That's the total estimated. So far, we have spent 66.4 million. And just like I mentioned on the water ones, you can see on Exhibit 2 the complete listing of projects. So as far as wastewater, this is the Dyer Railroad sewer interceptor. This is also on the northeast of El Paso. And this one is still in construction, and so far we spent 4.9 million on this specific project. Moving forward on the impact fees revenues, life to date, so far we have collected 16.9 million, roughly about 17 million in total life to date. You can see the different amounts from the different areas: 2.6 million from Northeast, 5.6 from the west side, 8.8 from the east side. But this is in total. You can also look at Exhibit 3, 4, and 5, I believe, and you can see all the details regarding each one of the areas, including any interest earned on their bank accounts. Okay. And pretty much this is all I have to present to you guys. We'll go back and check on the number of total subdivisions just to make sure we have the correct number. But this is all I have for you at the moment. If there's any questions, comments.
I got a question. We had talked in November about the impact fees. When was the last time they increased the impact fees?
Impact fees, as far as the amount, I don't think it has been increased. I know that the plan and the capital improvement.
It has not been increased since the inception in 2009.
Right.
2009.
So it hasn't been an increase since its conception in 2009, right?
That is correct.
That's correct.
Has anybody done anything to discuss that or bring it up? Is that city council that makes that decision? Or is that El Paso Water that brings it up? How's that work?
It is a city ordinance, so it is approved at the end by city council, and there's some city council members that have requested it, and I know the planning department can speak a little more about that.
Sure. So, as previously mentioned, there was an effort in 2014 that resulted in no increase, and then subsequent to that, there was initial efforts in 2019 to begin and look at modifying the impact fee. However, that those efforts were essentially put on hold at that time, and as correct. It has been mentioned. We are beginning and working in tandem with EPWU to look at revisiting and assessing any needed changes to the impact fee. So that is something that if it does move forward, will be on future agendas, and eventually, obviously, will require city council approval.
Is everybody or the EP Water of the opinion that it needs to be increased? I mean, 2009 just seems like a long time.
Oh, it will need to be increased. Yes, especially because technically the impact fees are going to be. My math is not working with me right now, but about 14, 15 years old, and then we have seen, of course, inflation plus the COVID price escalation that we have seen. So now the projects probably are costing more. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of the land use assumptions also, because things in relation to areas that are no longer available for development, that the West Side Master Plan that is now under a conservation easement that needs to be removed from the area that we will charge impact fees. So not only the capital improvement side of it, but also the land use assumptions.
I believe that was a report put together in 2019 when I was on the board also. It was put together promoting the increase of the fees. I'm not, there were, in my opinion, I had about 11 questions that I brought up in that. I don't think some of the numbers were right and everything else. I don't know if corrections were ever made. I don't know if it was presented to the city council, but I know that in 2019, just like the report says, the city council decided not to act on it.
When there's a
Actually, it was-
shortfall in this, where is it made up at?
Excuse me?
When there's a shortfall, I assume the impact fees based on 2009 numbers is not enough to cover the expenses that are required by El Paso Water. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. What is that shortfall? Is that 10%, 20%, 30%?
Ooh, right now, I think the last estimate that we had is that impact fees, as we're collecting right now, is only paying for about 30% of the cost of the current improvements.
Okay, so it's 60% sure, or 70% shortfall. So where's the additional income come right now? Through water?
Through water rates?
Okay. So if there's a greater impact fees, the water rates will still remain the same, I assume. They're not going to go down, correct?
Not necessarily, because our rates are very complicated, and maybe Gustavo can speak more about that.
Yeah,
That's why we need a rate study.
So
that is correct. And regarding all the projects, I mean, we do have them on the budget, and I mean, we know we're not going to be able to get all the money up front, so we have to upfront the money. And I mean, we use different instruments. I mean, we issue out bonds. We can use commercial paper, which is different ways for us to fund the projects. And of course, when we come up with those type of debts, I mean, that we have to do a calculation and include them into the payers rate. That's pretty much how we're funding it at the moment.
Okay, so did I hear you right that the current impact fee is only paying for 30% of the cost?
That's an average that we have calculated, yes.
Oh, okay.
So on that point, looking at the report for this period, it looks like we collected just shy of 17 million in impact fees, right? 16.9. When you say that covers 30% of the cost, I'm guessing that you're looking at the 46 million or so that you reported in this period of expenditures. So I guess just to follow up on this, what should the rate be? What would your target be? How much should you be collecting? Do you think if the impact fee was appropriate, would it cover all of the 46 million in capital expenses, or would it be just a 50% of that? What's the target?
Okay. Now we definitely can put some calculations and just provide an estimate on how much we think it should be. I know there's some limitations, but I know there's so much that we can charge on impact fees, but we can definitely go back and do a calculation.
There is a cap. According to the state statute, there is a cap on the impact fees. When you do the impact fee analysis and the rate analysis related to impact fees, there is also a statute cap. So it's not 100% of recovery because of the cap that the statute has on it. If you give me like 1 minute, I can tell you what the report on 2019 said that we should be charging. If you give me like a minute.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to hear. Has there been a lot of pushback to raise it, or has it just not been anything that's been discussed?
Well, actually, on the last budget meeting that we had for this new fiscal year, we were actually proposing to add a surcharge for those areas. The SIS, that's the one that we proposed, but of course, it got turned down by the board. I think they needed more information, and I guess they wanted to have more outreach to our customers out there. But I mean, yeah, we tried to impose an additional fees on those 3 specific areas, but didn't work out.
Yeah, not being educated about the matter, it just seems like 2009 is a long time to have the same rate.
That's correct.
Well, the other thing is that, 2009, we didn't expect the pandemic to happen, and cost of material rising and cost of labor rising. I understand that you got a 15% contingency on your projects. I think that got eaten up pretty quick, didn't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, and I think
Correct.
the last plan was approved, 2014? The capital improvement plan?
So I have
yeah,
a
that's-
question. I have a question as it relates to all of this. So is the money that's coming from, like, to make up the shortfall, is that coming from the payment from customers? Is that where that funding is coming from? Is that coming from like customer payments to for water bills?
Yes, overall, yes. I mean, we do have a budget for capital improvement projects, and of course, these areas are included on that budget.
So
So
have the
we
rates,
ask for,
so
when
have
we
the
ask for
rates
money-
increased? Have the rates increased?
yes,
So that's probably why the capital, and in my mind, that's why this other has not increased, because if you're increasing rates for customers to make up for this shortfall, and then you try to increase also this part, it's going to create problems with customers and with, I would say, probably developers as well, as they're working through this process. So I feel like maybe what we're doing is backwards, as we increase rates so that we don't have to create this assessment, which then creates an issue with customers. And I'm thinking that's why the board is hesitant to increase this portion of it, because they've already been increasing rates. So I think part of the discussion has to be, are we looking at this from the right perspective? Because right now, if we keep raising rates, that's just going to anger the customer. And that money is coming from the increased rates. But if we're not articulating that the reason why the rates keep increasing, part of that is because we don't have enough money to pay for capital improvements, then that may be an issue. So I just wanted to bring that up because I do see that there is maybe some friction amongst customers versus the water company in terms of rates. And it may be because they don't understand that part of that rate is going to pay for the capital improvements.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think that if I read Dwayne correctly, and then where he was going with his line of questioning is kind of getting to that. Is it fair to say that the consequence of not raising the impact fee since 2009 is that we have a 70% gap between the cost of the projects versus what the impact fee covers? Is it fair to say that 70% gap, that the ratepayers are paying for that cost gets offset to them? And I'm asking that because I think depending on where we fall, those of us on this board can go back to our city representatives and say, look, we suggest perhaps that you look into raising the impact fee to perhaps relieve some of the burden from the ratepayer. Is that really... Is all of that accurate?
yes, that sounds accurate, yes.
Adriana, you have your hand up?
I do. I found the 2019, it was the 2018 update, but it was the draft of the impact fee report that was produced on December of 2018. If I can share my screen, I can show you the comparison between the rates, and then Raf Tellis, our rate consultant, did current, what we proposed in 2014, and then what was proposed back in 2018, 2019. So hold on just a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this is out of that report, and this is that I'm gonna show the Northeast table. So the current, this is what is being on the current 2009 inception. It was 3,000. They proposed 2014. That was not increased at that time. It was proposed, but it wasn't increased. And that 4,000 it was proposed in 2018. So you see the jump from 2009 to and that's for the 3/4 inch, which is the typical residential unit. And then you see the rest of equivalent sizes as you move through the table. but that's the difference. And I imagine the number that we're gonna come up right now is gonna be higher than the 4,000.
So you also mentioned that the impact fee is capped at a certain amount. And so how far are we from that cap? Like, what is the gap between what the current impact fee is and what the cap is? And then is that proportional to the rate increases that have occurred in with the consumers?
I will have to go back to the original report, because the original report where we, at the exception time 2009, it was what was adopted by council. We will have to go back to that report so we can show you what was the cap at that time as per the state statute. And I don't have that information right now.
Yeah, I'm interested in knowing what the gap is. What is the gap between the cap and
Okay,
what we currently have?
Okay.
And you
may
can get
look
that to
at
me
that.
later.
Okay, yes,
That
because
is a
I just
report
to
I've got.
clarify my question.
We have a report similar that was done in 2009, and it shows what the state would have allowed at that time and what city council adopted as the actual rate.
Yeah, and
Which
actually
at
on the
that-
report, you can
Yes.
look at table number 2, and it'll give you like the maximum allowable impact fee, and also what we are charging right now. For example, Northeast, the maximum is $4,099. So far, we're charging $1,469. So
Could you
there's a
please share-
gap.
Gustavo, could you share your screen? Is it in the report that we currently presented?
It's on the report that we sent. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Let me share my screen so you can see it.
I'm sorry, I'm looking for percentage gap because if
Okay.
it's, I mean, not monetary gap. I need to know the percentage gap, because then you know whether or not that gap, like percentage gap, tells me a lot more than the number gap. Just like the actual money gap.
Right. Okay. Oh, yeah. But on the report, you can see how much we can. I mean, that's the maximum that we can charge. And I know Adriana was showing some, what they thought back then was the right number to charge. And I think on the last one, it was close to 4,000, the one for Northeast. But yeah, that so far, this is what the maximum allowable is.
So it's right there.
Just to add, I don't want to take too long, but just to add, I sat in that meeting in 2019 when I think I don't know, there was an engineering firm that presented the complete package. I know that what they were asking for was right at the limit or above the limit. But I can tell you right now is that there was a lot of contention on the numbers, because in some occasions they were comparing apples and oranges. Okay. And like I said, I put a list together, 11 questions that very few were answered, and it never came back. Now, I don't know exactly what was presented to the city council, but I can tell you in the last few years, from 2019 to today, I've heard some conversations between district representatives and stuff, and they're ready to accept an increase or consider an increase because of everything that's happened since 2019 to today. It's just, I don't believe it's been presented anymore, but they're ready to consider an increase into the impact fees. Okay, that's just my view in talking to a few people. Now, I know that there was some pushback by developers, because it makes the price of houses and selling them more expensive. And I know they had to do quite that dealt a big blow as far as being accepted in the past. And I don't know if that still happens, but yeah, developers and construction people, they don't want impact fees. They want to sell their houses. They don't want to raise the price of more than what it is now due to the pandemic.
Yeah, but we are deferring those. We are giving those costs to the consumer.
Right,
so
right, I understand
if
that.
they don't, so it's either the consumer or it is the developer. But right now, who's carrying the burden of all of these upgrades are the consumers, are the citizens of El Paso. And so I think if we make that clear to the city council members on what those challenges are, it might help provide a better opportunity for them to look at it from a very different perspective.
Yes, and I agree with you, and I've had that conversation with my district representative. The only problem is, like I said, you know, this was brought up in 2019. Pandemic started in 2021. Inflation, it's just, you know, it just doesn't look good right now based on what the economy is as far as inflation and everything else. But I agree with you. There should be a raise on the impact fees instead of water fees for everybody. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't want to be paying for somebody else's new construction when my neighborhood's been here for 90 years, okay?
Yeah. So I mean, that's my point. My point
Right.
is we
Right.
need to be very clear as to who's bearing the burden of these capital improvements. And right now, it is the citizens of El Paso.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I can do one thing right now real quick, and I'll make this my last comment. I attended a meeting a few months ago for my district representative. This topic came up in front of a lot of people, and not a lot of people feel the same way you do. Hey, why should I be paying for this and that and everything else? Raise the impact fees. And I think it might be the right time to do that.
I mean, the burden that our current citizens have we all just got our evaluations, our property evaluations. So you have that. I mean, they already carried that burden. That's a huge burden compared to other cities across Texas. And then we also add to that the cost of water rates increasing to make up those costs. We need to do something to help our constituents. I mean, we know that that's something that they've been concerned about. And 2009, come on. That's a lot. I mean, come on.
I agree with that. I completely agree. And this has been a great discussion. For me, I guess something I would be interested in seeing, if it's possible to get this, is so the facts are right now, to cover the cost of these capital projects, the developers through these impact fees are paying for 30% of that. The other 70% is offset to the ratepayer. Yeah, again, I go back, what is the goal? What should that be, right? And I guess to help inform us, I'd be curious what it was in 2009, 2010. If at that time the impact fee was covering 70% and now it's 30%, well, then it's been shifting too heavily, I would argue, and the burden going to the ratepayer. So if there's a way that we could get that information and see, what was the impact fee covering in terms of a percentage of capital expenses in 2009, 2010, I would like to see that, because I think that would be relevant information to pass on to our elected officials.
I think the sentiment from everybody is relatively the same, but what's the next step to take?
Well, I can tell you right now that in conversations with my district representative, the person has said, yes, we're ready to consider. I think we ought to raise the impact fees. It just hasn't been presented.
I think it's
Gustavo, is that something your group does?
What's that?
Currently, sure. I know we can come up with the capital improvement plan. I don't know about the logistics of taking it to city council. Diana, do you know about that?
We had an initial, I'm going to call it kickoff meeting, right, Raul, where the city and I got together to start working on that schedule. Because usually it has to be to make the update, it has to be presented to council February time or next year, more or less, right, Raul?
Yeah, that's correct. As I stated before, we have begun initial efforts to look at modifying the impact fee, and that's the process that'll include presenting to this board, as well as City Plan Commission, vetting it thoroughly through city leadership, as well as EP Water leadership, and then obviously at the end of the day ending up before City Council. And definitely, as we go through this process, we will be making update presentations to this body.
Okay.
So is it up to us to talk to our city council representative to let them know what we discussed? Is that because if this starts in February, we still have several months so that they can begin to think through this process. It'll allow us the opportunity to have those conversations.
I mean, I think individually, on an individual basis, you can definitely discuss with your city representative. I would just advise be mindful of the open meetings regulations and rules.
Right.
But I think on an individual basis, you should be okay.
Let me tell you what I do. After anytime we have this meeting semi-annually, a day or two after that, I actually get in contact with my city council representative.
Because it's a little much, I think.
Well, but let me tell you one thing, okay? There's been some changes in the city council since 2009. So one of the big things we need to do when you talk to your city council is educate them on the history of this thing here. Because some of them might not be aware. They were not on the council at that time. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's important that we do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize, we need to be informed. And what I feel like I need to understand to be informed is to understand how the percentage has changed since 2009. If the impact fees in 2009, I understand that, if it was 30% then and it's 30% now, well, that's a different story than if it was, again, covering 70% of the cost then and now.
Right.
So, to me, that's the first question a city rep would ask is what's the appropriate level that we should raise it? And so that's, if we could get some follow up with that information, I think that would help inform me. Because I agree, it seems like the burden is too heavily loaded on the ratepayer right now, who just got those appraisals in the mail this week, and we know what those look like. So
Yeah.
All right. We want to move on? Are you going to go through the EP water report? The second part of the presentation or not?
So, Mr. Moreno, I believe the second part, Section B, is just the agreeing to file the report that was presented under Section A.
So if we are done with the presentation, I guess the next step is I'd like to accept a motion to approve the presentation that was made.
Second?
I'd like to hear somebody, first.
First?
Okay, first. Do I hear a second on approving that motion?
A second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody disapprove, say nay. Okay. So the motion has been made and been carried to accept the presentation of the El Paso Water Utility Report on impact fees for the period September 1st, 2022 to February 28th, 2023. Okay. I guess the next thing on the agenda is the filing of this report, semi-annual report. I'd like to accept a motion to file this report. And I hear the first.
First.
Okay,
Second.
anybody second? All
I'll
right.
second it.
So I hear a second. So the motion has been made and approved for filing the semi-annual report as required under Chapter 395 of the Texas Local Government Code. And this is a report for with respect to the progress on the capital improvement plan and report to the El Paso City Council any perceived inequities in implementing the plan or imposing the impact fees. And this is for a report of September 22nd to 2022 to February 28, 2023, which is the report we just had. Okay. Now, I believe in the next step on our agenda is approval of the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee meeting minutes for November the 3rd, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
First.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay. Got an approval and a second. So the minutes for the November 3rd, 2022 meeting have been approved. Now, I want to mention that the next meeting for our committee is scheduled for November the 2nd, 2023. Okay. Now, is there anything else that we want to talk about? Like I said, I highly recommend that, since we were all appointed by a city representative, that you get in touch with the city representative and tell them what transpired in this meeting, bring them up to date. If they're new, if they're not, I know my city representative was on board in 2019, but like I said, I've kept her abreast. She understands very well what's going on, and like she's kind of mentioned to me that it is time to consider and move forward and make an increase in the impact fees. Okay. Now, if there's any other topics to talk about, anything else we want to bring up?
Manny, not a new topic, but I do have a question. We've asked for extra information from Mr. Gustavo. How do we go about getting that information? Do we have to wait till November, or does he send it to us in a week when he's able to get all that information to us and email it, or how does that work?
Okay, now here's what I recommend. Is there any way that the request for the impact fee increase that was made in 2019, I know it was a pretty extensive report. I've got a copy of it because I keep everything. Can that be emailed to all new members, ELSA, or anybody that does not have one? And if you look at that report, if you look at it in detail, I spent a couple of hours on it, on the numbers and everything else. It answers a lot of questions as to what it was in 2009, what they were requesting in 2019, what the percentages was, what the difference was. All that is there. Now, a lot of it was based on things in the future. Like I said, there was apples and oranges in the comparison. There was, I believe, in my opinion, there were some mistakes, but it was pretty intensive. Is there any way we can get this report to all the members, Elsa, or anybody?
Let me find out about that, and if I can obtain that report, I can surely email it out to the members.
Yeah, let me know, because I might have it in my computer on the 2019 stuff. But let me know. I know I want to do it the right way.
Okay.
Okay, so let me know, and if you were able to do that,
Yes.
or maybe I can send it to you and you can send it out. But that report is very, very, very extensive. And if I'm not mistaken, it was put together by some engineering firm that was hired to do this. Okay. It is
And
very.
it was a 2019 impact report?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was done by Raf Tellis, which is our rate consultant.
Right.
On
Right.
the rate side, the land use assumptions, which is part of the report, was prepared by city planning, and the actually capital improvement program was done by here in the engineering department at EPY.
Okay.
All right. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. But we've asked for new information from Mr. Gustavo. So how do we get that new information that we requested?
Yeah, as far as that information, I can provide it to Elsa. She could probably distribute the information to you guys, but
Okay.
we can definitely send it to you before the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, if you can give that to Elsa, and Elsa can distribute it out to all the membership. Appreciate that.
Yes, I will take care of that.
Okay. Anything else? All right. I guess at this time, we'd like to consider a motion to adjourn the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee meeting for April the 6th, 2023. Do I hear the first motion?
First motion?
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Again, thank you. The meeting has been adjourned. We'll adjourn the meeting right now at exactly 9:46. Very good meeting. Thank you very much, and have a great day. And Elsa will get all that information to us. And Elsa, send me email me the sheet that I can that I can sign, and then I'll deliver it to you at your office. Will you be there this afternoon?
No, this afternoon, no, but you can drop it off there to the front desk and they'll
Okay.
make sure to get that to me.
All right. Thank you very much, and have a great day, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Take
Bye-bye,
care.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.